Sorry, I can't run your errands, I'm grounded. Before you start, know that this is way longer than I expected. I tried to summarize as much as possible, but there are a lot of relevant details. Before deciding if you want to read, this is my perspective of an incident when I was a teenager where my parent very much regretted grounding me. So, this was back in the early 2000s. I was 17 and had very interesting parents. At least, my psychologists have said so. I got my license on my 16th birthday and became responsible for many of my parents' house management responsibilities. I dropped off bill payments. Before online payments were a thing, you had to drive to their offices if you didn't mail the checks in time, did the grocery shopping, and taxied my sibling to school and doctor appointments and friends' houses. I was completely on board as I loved driving and I'd always get an extra couple bucks in gas money. But I also spent the previous year homeschooling so I could commute to my mother's company an hour away and work for 40 hours a week, for free. So any freedom I got was like scraps at a starving dog. At that point, I pretty much was an adult, but was allowed to go to public school my senior year and reconnect with my old friends from grade school. It was kinda like being half teen, half adult, with the entitlement of a teenager who thinks they're an adult. My family's dynamic was interesting to say the least. I was the oldest. My younger sister was the obvious favorite. Each developmental milestone was met with resistance, and as I grew into new interests like makeup, music, and social activities, my parents insisted on getting the same things for both of us and giving us the same freedoms at the same time. She was 3 years younger. But the rules were strict for me, but never enforced for her. I wasn't allowed to date till I was 18. She was allowed to date at 14. They also brought her shopping all the time. But I was the responsible one. So they signed me up for free work with their social group to increase their social standing. My sister never had to work. But, "We're so proud of you. You're the only child we can trust with the credit card." Yeah. Because I've been contributing to this household since I was 14. It's called child labor. I counted the days till I'd be free of my family. But while I was stuck, I found ways to have fun and I had a lot of friends. At 17, I was randomly given a curfew. I never actually had a curfew until that month and was used to being out until 2 or 3 a.m. But in their words, "You're going to be home by 10 p.m. every night because you keep coming in late and waking us up when you brush your teeth." Yeah, neglect is kinda funny when you look back on it. I especially love that I was a teen who still brushed her teeth every day, and it inconvenienced my parents enough to notice me. An additional background tidbit is that my younger sister had been caught with pot in our evangelical Christian family's home. She was in the most trouble she'd ever seen. 1 month grounded. But they let her off the hook after 2 weeks. This occurred the month before the following story. So within a month of my new curfew, I was 5 minutes late getting home. I didn't rush home. I figured it wasn't a big deal. After all, I made their house run and I actually never got in trouble because aside from brushing my teeth too late, I pretty much was an adult with adult responsibilities. I could literally ask my mom to call me in sick for school because I didn't feel like going. And she would. Boy, was I wrong. They went nuclear. I was screamed at for an hour and grounded for 2 weeks from the car. Well, growing up in that house, it kind of rolled off my back. Lol. But I was pretty angry that my punishment for being 5 minutes late was equal to my sister's punishment for storing and smoking drugs in our house. I also knew that my parents were about to regret this punishment. I have quite the mean streak when I'm pushed, and I'm ashamed to admit. I loved torturing them at every opportunity. I know they were expecting me to beg for the car and apologize. But I did not. I knew exactly what was coming and how little they thought this one through. There's a phrase, "Don't kill the golden goose." Well, when your entire household runs on the shoulders of a 17-year-old, you've made some bad life choices. Especially when that 17-year-old is as smart and reliable as the adults are supposed to be. The next day, yes, the very next day, my mother comes into my room and asks me to drop off a bill she forgot to mail. This isn't word for word, but the gist. "Mom, I have to meet with a client and don't have time. I need you to run this to local utility company." Yes. She never asks. She demands. Me, looking up from my book. "Sorry. I'm grounded." "Mom, well, we'll make an exception." Me, "No. Because then I'll never learn to not be 5 minutes late for curfew." Yes. My smartassness was the main reason I wasn't the favorite child. As they explained to me many times, I apparently had an attitude problem from the age of 4. "Mom, well, I really need you to take this to local utility. If you don't, we'll have to pay a late fee." Me, "Well, if I'm grounded from the car, I'm grounded from the car. I won't be doing any errands until it's over." She huffed off, realizing her mistake. I never followed up with how that one turned out for her. Over the next week, I started acting like a normal teenager. I walked to my friends' houses. I was only grounded from the car. Would call my parents when I needed a ride home. Lol. That was my favorite. I can't be late for curfew and you don't want me walking home in the dark. I actually walked so much and so far that my thighs were rock hard at the end of that week. During that week, my parents looked a mess. They had to drive my sister everywhere and learned how exhausting it really was. They had to actually plan their errands and watch their own kids. I was on vacation. During that week, the requests went from, "We'll make an exception," to, "We never meant you couldn't run errands," to, "These errands are the only reason we let you drive that car," to, "Please. Just this once. We only grounded you because we love you," to, "You're so ungrateful. You're supposed to be the responsible one." Basically, the whole gambit of manipulation. At this point, I'm gaslight-proof and I had actively hated my mom for over 3 years. I was enjoying myself so much that I sometimes wonder why I enjoyed being a psychopath to her when I'm actually not one at all. I have diagnostic proof that I'm not a psychopath. Lol. By the end of the first week, I was called out to have a talk with them. My mother was the tougher of the two. My dad was pretty cool, but always sided with her. "Mom, we've decided you've learned your lesson. We're letting you off your punishment early. But you have to start running your errands again and driving your siblings." Me, "No. I'm good with the current system." "Mom, I insist. We don't have time to run errands." Me, smiling because finally, "Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you took away my car." Mom, "Well, if you don't run the errands, you can't have the car back." Me, "Fine with me." I walked out of the room like a proud peacock. After the 2 weeks were up, they assumed I'd be back to normal. Nope. I basically told them that I'd rather walk as the number of responsibilities far outweighed the benefits of driving. They were not happy. But what could they really do? They lasted 1 more week. I went carless for a total of 3 weeks. Finally, my mom broke down and did the unthinkable. She begged. Well, the words were begging. The tone was sucking up. But I truly enjoyed it. It took all my energy not to beam with self-pride. Now, my mother was a saleswoman. She had been inadvertently training me for years. In that moment, I opened negotiations. In the end, I got an extra $10 a week in gas money on top of the $3 bucks here or there for unscheduled errands. I still had the curfew, but I got a few minutes grace period from then on. They never even dared to threaten to take my car or license away again. But the cherry on top, my sister's personal taxi service was closed. Apparently, she treated them the same way she treated me during her frequent and unnecessary rides, and from then on, she had to be nice if she wanted a ride. There were a few incidences where she tried to get my parents to force me to take her or tell her where I was going, but they didn't. They knew better than to kill their golden goose of home management, and for the rest of the year, I finally had a great childhood because I was left alone on my own terms. Oh man, was your mom mine? Hugs. The same, including grounding me from the car and taking my license. You need to go get milk. K. It's 100 degrees out by the time I walk home, it'll be bad. Got my shit back. That's the only time she did that one. She would ground me from the phone when I had no friends to talk to because she isolated me so much. She got so pissed when she came home on my 18th b-day and I and my stuff were gone. Came to my work crying and causing a scene. She didn't like it, but it pleased me to no end to tell her I didn't have time for her, I had rent to pay. You did 17 right. Wish I had had that kind of smarts when I was that age. Parents giving kids curfews must be careful that they don't set up the system of consequences to give kids incentives to take unnecessary risks just to get home before an arbitrary time. Big consequences for 5-minute missed deadlines are a terrible idea that can incentivize teens to speed or break traffic laws to beat the clock. Personally, with parents like that, I would have held out for the rest of the year. If they still want to be jerks about things, start pointing out the things that sister had done and was allowed to get away with, and see of how quickly they changed their attitude and treatment in the process. Oof. This is so relatable, op. I was the oldest child, errand runner, and the scapegoat in your classic narcissist parent household. Younger sister was the golden child. My mom and stepdad used to take off for month-long vacations and leave me in charge at age 16. If my sister would misbehave though, I'd be the only one to get into trouble. I finally hit my wall in my senior year. My parents found out my sister's boyfriend had spent the night one night when they were out of town. He sneaked in while I was asleep. A nosy neighbor saw his car and told my parents. And they sat on this info for weeks until I tried to go to a concert with my friends, and then they said I couldn't go because I was grounded for not tattling on her. I was usually really easily intimidated. But that night I snapped and told them that if they didn't like the way I parented their child, they were welcome to stick around for once and do it instead, and then I left with my friend. I figured I'd get in trouble the next day. But my parents never brought it up again. I think they were embarrassed that I called them out like that and just decided to pretend it didn't happen. Stands up and claps, well done! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. I laughed at your vindictiveness. I'm ashamed to admit, I loved torturing them at every opportunity. No need to be ashamed. They made you their slave, and slaves have a duty to get back at their oppressors. While teens should have chores. They took it way too far. Ha, that's awesome. I started working when I was 15 because I wanted to. But my mom almost immediately started making me pay for everything myself. Food. Underwear. She screamed at me one night after work because I poured a bowl of cereal. That's breakfast. You're wasting money. Lol. Okay, cuss. 35 cents worth of cereal and milk being eaten as a waste. We had an overweight guest stay with us for 6 months and she slept in my bed. My mattress was destroyed. Literally caused me horrible back pain. So I slept on the living room floor for years because my parents said I couldn't have a new mattress unless I paid for it myself. My grandpa gave me great life advice on this. We may not always know the right things to do, but we can certainly learn from the wrong ones. I will always do my best to be a good dad to my kiddos. My dad is exactly like this, but I usually can't think of anything to say when he says he's letting me off early. Until now. I can't fucking wait to piss him off with your tactics, evil genius smirk face. Fantastic. Automatic upvote after, no. Because then I'll never learn to not be 5 minutes late for curfew. Wow. The part about you brushing your teeth inconveniencing your parents enough to notice you hurt my heart. It reminded me of once when I was so sick as a teen. I had a fever and couldn't breathe and could not stop coughing. All day and all night. I was laying in bed, coughing into my pillow and wishing someone would bring me some medicine or a hot drink. Finally at around 4 a.m. I heard one of my parents stirring and thought, oh thank goodness. Help is on the way. My dad angrily slammed my door open and said, can you please shut up or cough quieter? I can't bloody sleep. And stomped out. I cried. What the FCK? Dad? Hope you are out of there now. This reminds me of an incident with my dad. I got my driver's license 4 days after my 18th birthday. You have to be 18 here. From that moment on I had to drive my brother and sister to places. My brother not so much because he got around by bike. But the golden child should be driven everywhere. I complained a lot about her attitude and one day my parents said, you can always kick someone out of the car if you are driving and they are distracting you. So I am driving home with my sister in the back. She is all acting up and at one point opens the door when I am driving. So I just stop in the middle of the road and tell her to walk. It is only like 800 meters, half a mile till home. She curses and doesn't want to get out. Eventually she gets out. I drive away slowly and she calls our mother. So I get home, get cursed at again and have to pick her up again. She didn't want to get in so I follow her home. I get cursed again. But they know they can't take the car so I don't get punished and I don't have to pick up my sister that much anymore. She did get a little lecture that she should be glad I was driving here everywhere otherwise she couldn't participate in her 5 hobbies. I'm glad you got that bit of respite from that mess. I hope you're doing better nowadays. Look up parentified children. Wish I had your backbone at 17. I was also the scapegoat child. At 17, I was randomly given a curfew. I never actually had a curfew until that month and was used to being out until 2 or 3 a.m. My parents did something like this. Age 13 gaming on my computer until 3 a.m. Friday, Saturday. No problem. Age 18 gaming on my computer until 3 a.m. Friday, Saturday. You need to be in bed by 11 p.m. Good on you for standing up for yourself. And if you aren't a member of the sub already, I suggest you go check out RCPTSD. Seems you, I, and many other Redditors have the same mother. What's up, fellow sibling? Edit. Hugs to all the siblings, smiling face with hearts. Fan-fucking-tastic, my friend. Good to see someone get a bit of their own back.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.